let's get into the river for the first time this year. Yeah, the water's a little bit high. Not too high though for this early in the season. A little bit murky too. So, questioning what the bite will be like today. It's super early, March 10th only. It was also in the 60s the past 2 days, so water should be getting warmed up. Still feels pretty cold, obviously. Ice just came off a couple days ago. Likely still upper 30s, maybe around 40. Water's definitely a little bit higher and murkier than I'd prefer, but it's doable. I don't know if you can see that, but over there there's still ice chunks floating down. So definitely dealing with maybe not ideal conditions today, but it is very nice. Extremely mild. Gonna be working just a Rapala Husky jerk today in an orange color. Just straight braid, no leader, no nothing. Super simple. It's been a while since I've done a ton of open water casting. I did take a few casts yesterday when I was in De Pere in the Fox River, but didn't have much time. Didn't fish for long and didn't have any luck, and also didn't see anyone else have much success. Primarily targeting northern today. There's a dog over there in the river. Usually the smallmouth activity doesn't pick up until later spring when the water warms up to maybe about 60. I'm wondering if it's still too cold for the pike to be too active, but like I said, today and yesterday were super warm and sunny, so might be starting to get active. I fish this stretch of river quite frequently and usually have decent luck for smaller pike and also smallmouth during the warmer months. There's that ice I was talking about. This Husky jerk is a perfect lure for this river if you don't cast it into the shore, because it doesn't dive super deep, and this river is not very deep, anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 or 6 feet. This only dives down a couple feet, which is good. The one negative is it doesn't cast very far because it's not super heavy, so especially if you're casting into some wind like we have today, it's not the best. Definitely not ideal wading conditions today. Very muddy and also very murky, so it's hard to see really anything on the bottom. Like I said, ideally too, the water would be a little bit lower, at least for the wading. Hoping to at least get one northern today. It's really my only goal. First open water fish of the season is always exciting. Casts are a little bit rusty. Water's starting to get pretty deep here, up past my waist. This river goes back and forth between mud and rocks, so it is tricky to navigate, both wading and with a kayak. Fish usually tend to hang out near shore, under trees. That's kind of the only cover here. There's not a ton of weeds, so it's always good to try to hit those shorelines right under the tree banks. Probably pretty important with the water so cold to... Whoa, I don't know what happened there. Try to do a slower retrieve, which I don't like doing, but fish probably aren't super aggressive yet. Water's flowing quite a bit, so I think that's also a bit of a challenge, trying to keep this lure down. Apologize for the road noise. Unfortunately, it's a pretty busy road that we walked under just a bit ago. Also might be some wind noise, but the wind has seemingly died down a bit. Not sure how long I'll actually fish for today. Usually just walk up to the bend up here and then walk back. But not sure how far we'll be able to make it with the higher water. We did just get about 2 inches of rain 5 or 6 days ago, so also had some snow melt. We actually had a relatively cold winter in southern Wisconsin this year, so just a week or two ago this river was completely frozen over, probably over a foot of ice. I thought it'd be a while before we could open water fish, but the spring has been really accelerated in terms of the temperatures. It feels more like early May today. But of course it's gonna get colder again tomorrow and be pretty up and down going forward, which is typical of this time of year. I also haven't used this GoPro much, so I don't really know how the exact angling works. Hopefully you can see okay. I'm gonna try to move this lure a little bit slower, but the current is making it difficult, to be honest. Can't go too much higher here. I do hope that it's dry for a while, although since we didn't have much snow this winter, probably would be beneficial overall to get a little bit wetter spring, but the rain always kind of makes river fishing with waders challenging. Might have to bust the kayak out soon. It's usually a pretty good spot right in here by these logs. I don't know. Ideally, I would have came out a couple hours ago, maybe around 2 or 3 in the afternoon when the sun was at the highest point, but it's probably about 5:30 or 6 now. Fortunately, I had to work today. I feel like it's always best super early season when the water is cold to get out right at the warmest time of the day when the sun's the highest. Probably when those fish will be the most active. It's a real rocky section here. Definitely cannot see anything, which makes it a little bit dangerous. In a couple months when the water warms up, I like to fish a topwater lure through here, but I think it's definitely still too cold for that. Using my heavier rod and reel setup today. Got a St. Croix Bass X 7.1 medium heavy power fast action, and then a Daiwa Fuego LT 4000 here. Like this reel, got it last season. Works nice for those middle-sized pike and bigger bass. Maybe smaller muskie, smaller catfish. Nothing too huge, but it'll handle pretty much about 95% of the fish that catch around southern Wisconsin. Like I mentioned, I think there's 2 things that might be preventing the bite today, and that is the water's still cold and there's not much visibility. I did catch quite a few northern last spring around this time, actually maybe a little bit earlier than this, but last spring we had a really early warm up in February actually, and probably a couple weeks ahead of where we are this spring so far. And this is more of just a test run, to be honest. Don't really know what to expect with the ice just coming off a couple days ago. you can see, there's still some remnants of ice. As I mentioned, the weather has been very favorable lately for open water fishing. Almost record high. I think today reached 66, 67. So we had well over a foot of ice on most bodies of water, which has melted very quickly in a week or two, and there is still quite a bit of ice on a lot of the inland lakes. But I do believe the ice fishing season is pretty much over. I think as far as the ice goes, you could probably still ice fish on some of these lakes if you could get out to the ice, but most of the lakes have 10 or 15 feet on the shore with no ice. Like I said, northern are the target species today, and northern get hate sometimes, but honestly they fight hard and they're fun to catch, and they also bite pretty consistently throughout the entire year. And although I don't eat them often, they aren't too bad tasting. Maybe not as good as like a walleye or a perch, but definitely better than a bass. They are slippery and pretty slimy, but other than that, I definitely don't mind catching northern. So as I think I said, I'm using just straight braid today, and it's pretty heavy braid. I think it's like 30 or 35 pound. I considered tying on a steel leader, but honestly with this heavier braid, I feel like you don't need it. Don't get bit off very frequently. Sometimes the straight braid is just more effective at catching these northern instead of having a big heavy steel leader dangling off the front of the lure. Sometimes I think it can make the lure kind of travel in a different pattern than it should. be honest, I've usually caught something by now. I'm not too shocked given the conditions. I would consider switching up lures, but this is the only thing I have with. Don't have my tackle box along. And honestly, I usually only fish 2 lures in here, that being the topwater Berkley Chapo, I believe it's called, and then this Husky Jerk. Like I said, it's shallow, so it can be hard to fish a ton of other things. Hitting some rocks here actually. The shoreline on the left is fairly shallow. Looks like there's a muskrat right over there. I kind of thought there would be more ice floating through the river today, but really haven't seen too much, which is a good thing. I've almost fell multiple times today, which is kind of unavoidable when you can't see all these rocks. I'll probably just work up to that next bend up there. Gets pretty deep around that, and I'll probably just walk the rest of the way back. I usually don't fish coming back downstream just because the water usually gets super cloudy after walking through the mud. But today, honestly, I don't know if that matters since it's already pretty dirty. The visibility is very low, probably a foot or so. I mean, it's only not even up to my waist here, and you can't see the bottom at all. A couple rocks over there that are shallower. Most of the pike in here are on the smaller side, low to mid 20s. Caught some upwards of 30 inches, In fact, right about here, along the left shoreline here, caught about a 30-incher last spring around this time. So if we could replicate that, that'd be exciting. I guess even if the fish aren't biting, it's super peaceful evening out on the river, and it's nice to enjoy this warm weather. Feels weird to not have to wear a hat and gloves. Probably hasn't been this warm since October, I'd imagine. Well, I think we might need to wait a few more days yet for the water to come down a bit, clear up a bit, and most importantly warm up. definitely didn't have super high expectations fishing today, but I was hoping we'd maybe at least get one. And again, I'm not fishing for super long, obviously, and I'm probably not fishing at the ideal time of day. Hopefully the next time I'm able to get the kayak out. It's still in storage, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks be able to get that in the water. And then hopefully in a month or two I'm able to get the boat in the water. I don't say this super often, but I'd be happy with a 16-inch pike right now. Caught plenty of them through the ice over the past couple months, but just anything right now to get on the board. Open water 2025 season. Caught plenty of fish right under these trees over here on that side of the river that hang off the bank. Also, the last of the sunlight is hitting over there. Seems like it'd be the perfect spot. Surprised to see a weed. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I know it's not a super exciting video, but first time out. Like I said, I think it's a little early. Also my first time, or one of my first times using the GoPro. Definitely will be getting out